for AFPWNC, and we're recording. Hope that's okay with everybody. If you're able to come off or come on to camera, that's great. I think this is an intimate group and that'll facilitate some conversation, but of course, do what's best for you. I'll make a couple of quick announcements and introduce Kevin, who's got a great presentation for us today. Our next AFP monthly program meeting will be on March 16th. It will be virtual and is going to feature Amanda Edwards speaking on the topic of nonprofit and government collaboration. So look for more information on that coming out soon. Excited to have Amanda back. She's a staple member of the chapter and has a unique vantage point on the intersection of nonprofit and government. So please join us for that. And I am thrilled to announce here for the very first time to this small group that in April 20th, we're going to come back for in-person events. They're going to look a little different than the traditional luncheon event that we hosted pre-pandemic. We're going to experiment with some different venues and some different formats. So we'll work with you all to figure out what works the best for us, but we're excited about reemerging and doing so in a way that is responsible and safe, and we'll continue to assess the situation with COVID and variants and make game time decisions as necessary. But everything proceeding along the trajectory it seems like it is, we're hopeful to make this move in April. So that'll be April 20th, and block your calendars for the afternoon. We're probably going to kick off around 4 o'clock and do a happy hour timed event. And our speakers are going to be from Dogwood and speaking to us about grant making priorities at Dogwood. So that's an interesting topic to all of us. So please mark your calendars, tell your friends, more coming soon. With that, I'm not going to thank our sponsors for 2022. I've thanked our 2021 sponsors many times, even gave them a bonus month last month. We're going to be rounding up sponsors for 2022 in the next few weeks. So in March, we'll discuss them and celebrate them, but we'll give ourselves a month off from sponsor recognition this month. And with that, I just want to plug the fact that Carrie Ann Chandler is revamping the mentoring program that AFPWNC supports and sponsors. It's been on a bit of a hiatus during the pandemic, and she's got a really ambitious plan to come back strong on that front. So I hope that you'll stay tuned for more information there in these events and elsewhere, and consider being either a mentor or a mentee. She's got an ambitious plan that I think is going to do a lot of good for our chapter members. Okay, I'll stop there with announcements and introduce you to Kevin. Really excited to have Kevin Williamson with us today. He's currently with North Carolina A&T, one of the UNC system schools, and oversees the major gifts team and works with a number of groups across campus to engage them in fundraising work. So that perspective is really valuable. And something that Kevin shared with me a little bit earlier before others were on the call is he attributes a lot of his success in his roles in higher education to the fact that he started his fundraising career with the Boy Scouts of America and got a lot of experience working on the ground with CEOs and development committees to make headway for those groups. Kevin's been in higher education fundraising for many years, about 15 years. He's served in roles at UNC Greensboro, Winston-Salem State, and UNC Wilmington, and has taken on increasing leadership roles across those organizations. And as I said, has a background with the Boy Scouts of America. So I've known Kevin for a little while from my time in the UNC system, and I'm excited to see him again today. And with that, thanks, Kevin. Please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. If you wouldn't mind, so Ben introduced me. If you wouldn't mind just kind of going around so I have a little bit of an idea. I guess that's part of the luxury of having a small group. I have a little idea of where folks are coming from.
Kevin, if you can call on folks to, why don't we do each of us introduce ourselves and then pick the next person so that we get over a bit of the Zoom awkwardness. So
I can start. You may.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Tiffany Armstrong. I have been a part of AFP for many, many years. I currently am the managing director for a small national nonprofit called the College Diabetes Network, and we help young adults transition from out into independence, managing their disease, and also managing their not only their physical health, but their mental health with a chronic illness. I am here in Asheville and work from home.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany.
I'll go. Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Holler-Hunter. And for 25 years, I've been a fundraising consultant with the business partner, Angela Kemper. We're Hunter Kemper Consulting. And we've worked around this region nationally and also globally. And I'm also a coach, life and executive coach.
Thank you.
Becky, love you. Haven't seen you in a while. I'm calling on you. Where'd you go? There you are.
In the wrong thing. Hi, Becky Davis. I'm with the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina. And Jessica, you're up.
Hi, I'm Jessica France. I'm obviously also AFP WNC's chapter administrator. In my full-time life, I am the development director for BirdNote, which is an independent media production company. We make a radio program and a podcast that, as you can probably imagine, is all about birds. And I will call on, is that Laura? It says L. Walker.
No, that's Lee Walker.
Lee, sorry about that. Calling
That's
on
okay.
Lee.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. Again, Lee Walker. I'll look at the camera here. I'm a little under the weather, so sorry for not looking real professional at the moment. But I'm the development director with Second Harvest Food Bank of Northeast Tennessee. So that's in the Tri-Cities area. Our warehouse is actually in Kingsport. And this AFP chapter is the closest one to our region, which is why I'm a member with y'all. Happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee.
I'll go next. Nice to know you, Lee. My name is Carrie Ann Chandler, and I am the mentoring chair for AFP WNC, and I am the communications and development director at Smart Start Partnership for Children. We are a small early childhood nonprofit serving Henderson County. And I'm going to call on my friend, Kat Carlton, if she's there. There she is.
Here I am. I was sneaking in some lunch. Hello, Kat Carlton, United Way of Henderson County. Formerly grant manager at Manna Food Bank. So know your work there, Lee. And I'm director of development, resource development at United Way of Henderson County. So we work with dozens of nonprofits throughout the community here, including Smart Start, who does incredible work. Thank you. And I will pass it to Tiffany.
I've already gone, so I will just, I'm trying to think, if Becky went, then I think we're all good, right?
Yeah, I think we got everybody.
Yeah, we got everybody. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for those introductions. That was helpful. Let's see, get here to share. So Jim Brewer and I spoke a couple of weeks ago. He asked me to come on and share some things. It's kind of all over the place. We were thinking about development in the pandemic, development in general. So I've been asked a lot about how we have managed development in the pandemic, we as an ANC. And I hear a lot of people coming up with all kinds of ideas and solutions and recommendations, and thing I just try to think about is keeping it basic as possible, because that's where the success is going to be, by keeping things basic, getting back to the basics. There's some innovative things you can definitely try, and that have worked, like Zoom meetings. I hear a lot of people saying, well, people are zoomed out. My response to it is, well, I think people were tired of running around as well. So I think anything we do as humans, especially Americans, we are conditioned to work it to death to where we're just worn out. So either way, it's going to happen. I think one of the beauties of the digital technology, it's allowed us to be able to reach wider audiences than we normally would have. Gives you an opportunity to reach folks if you're working that Buncombe County area or Western North Carolina, somebody who loves that area but happens to now live on the West Coast. Now you can invite them to attend your event. They may not have been able to find their community wherever they moved to for work or family. They could still be a part of their community digitally. What this is about is directing development. This was a presentation I did for our faculty and staff on campus. What I was telling Ben, you can use it to apply to just about anything, not just faculty and staff, but you can apply it to your work. You can apply it to speaking with any staff you may have. If you don't have staff, you can use it when you're talking with your board members or other volunteers. It's really about, again, directing the development and getting everybody involved. So excuse me if a lot of this seems real basic and you don't feel like you need it, but it's just kind of reiteration. I thought it'd also be helpful just in case somebody may have interest in going into higher ed if you hadn't done higher ed before, just to kind of see some of this. So the way we're made up and where a lot of advancement shops are made up is alumni relations, development, which is fundraising, of course, and advancement operations. You know, depending on your work, alumni relations, that could be you focusing on people who come out of the program that you work for, like Smart Start, kids who come out of that program and who were able to thrive off of that, parents who've been involved with that program, grateful patients, if you're in the healthcare setting. When I think United Way, think about the folks who benefited from there, be it people who work at these agencies that benefit from it, or some of the beneficiaries who are clients of some of these organizations that United Way supports. Advancement operations, extremely critical. They don't typically get as much love or shine as the frontline development folks, but so very important. These are typically your folks who are going to be processing the gifts, thanking the donors. If you don't have that, if you're a one-person shop, that's something to advocate for. If there's money there, to a lot of people want to hire new fundraisers, that can be helpful. But I can speak from experience. We're definitely going through that challenge right now in A&T. We hired more fundraisers. I am fully in support and making sure the back office support is there, because we've got all these donors and we've done all this engagement, and now we're to the point of about half of my emails start off with, I apologize for my delayed response, because there's so much follow-up that we just don't really have the bandwidth to handle. But that advancement operations area is key. That may be something we come back to. Fund development, just got a description of that. Strategic integrated method of managing relationships, basically. And that can be with whoever your beneficiaries are, whoever your clients are, with the organization you work with. Development professionals. Us on here who work in this field, we know it's about communicating about the institution or the agency you work with. You're engaging your alums, your beneficiaries, whoever it is in the work that you do. You're advocating for that agency and its support. Securing private contributions is so key to ongoing support. I think most of you know, especially if you're writing grants, that it's not uncommon for a corporation or a foundation to ask, in the event you do not receive these funds, what's your backup plan, basically? Are you going to close shop, or do you have another way of getting these funds? And, you know, we want to make sure that donors have a rewarding experience, rewarding enough that it's going to be repeatable. and they're going to want to continue to support you. That's the importance of having that back office that I talked about, advancement or development operations. Somebody who's really concentrating on donor relations and stewardship. And that could be set up with a volunteer committee if you're a one-person shop. Donor Bill of Rights. If you don't know this, this is basically stating that donors have the right to know about their giving, know what their giving looks like, to know about things going on in the organization. They have the right to get a statement on their giving. Here's a whole list, and I can bullet these out and send them to you later if anybody's interested in them. But basically informed on the organization's mission, be informed of the identity of those serving the organization's governing board, access to the organization's financial statements. So yes, those of you who don't know, the salaries are public. Appropriate acknowledgement and recognition. Definitely want to make sure that happens. That's another one of those things where you can engage all day, but you got to have the bandwidth. You got to create the opportunity to have the bandwidth so you can make sure to acknowledge gifts and to recognize these donors so that they feel good about what they're doing. And you can keep coming. You can get them to keep coming. Development, again, higher ed. Typically, we've got annual giving, which can include leadership annual giving. So for higher ed, at least for the UNC system, it's typically a major gift is $25,000. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit with the major gift part. Annual giving for us is anything up under that level. A major gift would be whatever your organization has established as a major gift. I would usually look at that as an annual gift. If you're consistently getting gifts of $1,000 or more unsolicited, that would probably be your leadership annual level. If you've got a few gifts that are 10,000 or more, that's probably a good space to start to figure out where your major gift level should be. And of course, principal gifts is above and beyond that. For a university, typically it's 25,000 for a major gift. Principal gift is usually $1 million plus. Corporate and foundation giving, which I'm thinking a lot of you probably get a lot of, corporate and foundation giving. Plan giving, if you're not an expert in that, or you don't have someone on your team who has experience in that, that would be a great volunteer opportunity to really get somebody in. Plan giving is an awesome way to be able to secure the future of an organization. It also gives people who really are interested in the work you're doing an opportunity to support at a level they may not be able to do in their lifetime. Donor cultivation. I know everybody knows how this works. Again, this is something to think about with regard to sharing with your volunteers and anybody who's on your team, and just making sure you stick with the steps. Remember the continuum: awareness, interest, experience, participation, ownership. Of course, starting with identification, identifying the individuals who could potentially support your organization. Information and awareness. This is really what we call the qualification stage. That's making sure that Carrie Ann is really interested in what you're selling, that she really wants to support it. Does she just like the events, if you're having events, or does she really believe in what you're doing and has an interest in supporting in some area? And that's the case, that's when the cultivation starts. Hey, you like me, I like you, let's get together, let's date. Solicitation. You all know what that means. We've had a good run. Enjoy each other's company. You like what I do. We'd like for you to support at X level. And then once that happens, the stewardship, just making sure they're appropriately thanked. That's the ownership. Participation, of course, is the solicitation and actually making the gift. Ownership, and the way I look at it is, Bird Note, I think they're doing a great job. That's being involved. Ownership is Bird Note, we're doing a fantastic job. These are the things that we are doing. When a donor says we, that means they have ownership in the organization they're participating with. And that's where you want to get to, ownership. Pandemic wise, that's something we really focused on a lot at A&T, just really making sure that people felt included with what was going on. And I think that would apply to most organizations. Supporters want to know that your doors are staying open, that you've got a plan, that you're still solid, or even if you're not solid, they want to know. And they just want to know that you have a plan moving forward. And they want to be told how to be involved. A lot of times they know, and it's a good opportunity to ask them how they want to be involved. But that's a continuation of the relationship. That's part of that cultivation, and just making sure we really listen to our donors to make sure we really know where they want to be, how they want to be involved, and that we're living up to that, and not getting stuck in a rut. If somebody's helping on one kind of committee or doing one particular thing, I'd say for like Second Harvest, for instance, you got a supporter they always are good for stuffing boxes and bags. That's what they do. Don't get stuck on that. Find out what those other interests are. You may have somebody who's been doing that for 10, 20 years and they're the best at it and they love organizing that. Don't take for granted that there may be some other areas that they'd like to be involved with. Making sure they know participation is key. I think one of the key things that is missed with volunteers a lot of time is that we don't ask for their gifts first. I know it can be a little taboo sometime and a little tricky, but it's really important to figure out a way to work that into conversations. It takes really doing the homework to see who you're bringing on board. I have this fight with deans at the university all the time, not just at A&T, I've had it at every university. They want to set up advisory boards, different advancement councils to help with the mission. And they want to bring on these folks with these wonderful names, but they are very fearful of putting a giving expectation out front. And I've heard plenty of volunteers say, yeah, I don't really join boards where you have to give. I don't think that's necessary. I'm giving my time, but at the end of the day, time does not keep doors open. Time does not pay salaries. Time does not feed families, save birds, do any of the things that we're trying to do. It really makes a difference when you can talk to a potential corporate supporter or a foundation, let them know that you have a high percentage of board level giving participation. That's a big deal. It gives them some skin in the game. And it also can give you some unrestricted resources when you need them.
Kevin, to that point, I've often encountered a situation where a board or council was built without a giving expectation. And then there's frustration on the part of the organization that the board's not giving. And there's a bit of a catch-22 there, that we don't want to ask them to give, but we expect them to give. And then it's very hard to go to somebody who's been serving on a board for an extended period of time and has not been expected to contribute, and to change that expectation. So I don't know if you've ever had to navigate that. if you have any advice there.
Yeah, actually, when I got to A&T, it was like that. And I remember being in a meeting with the chancellor, some of his cabinet, and my leadership, and advisory boards came up for the different colleges and schools on campus. And chancellor was frustrated about the giving level. He said the giving level is not good. We've got to do a better job. He said, and frankly, I don't understand it. People who get on boards know that they're supposed to give. And I kind of made a face, which I've got to do better with my facial expressions. My wife says I don't have a good poker face at all. So I'm glad I'm not a liar, because it just wouldn't work. But he said, they do. Do you disagree? And I kind of grinned, and he said, it's okay. You can disagree with me. And I said, well, I don't so much disagree, but I will say that it starts with whoever's at the top. I said, even if it's one of your boards. I said, but for the deans, and it can go for you all with CEOs, executive directors, what have you. If that expectation is not communicated from the top, then it's not going to happen. They've got to be bought into it, and they've got to communicate it. And it's got to be communicated when people are being sought for opportunities. So we had to do a lot of revamping. There were some boards that had folks on there like that, and we just had to say, look, this is the direction and why. And it's important to just have a reason that makes sense. You know, if they're really bought into it, they'll understand, and they'll either come to terms with it and support, or they'll move off. You got to assess your own situation to see that it'll work. I think that's why we're having maybe a soft kind of feasibility kind of study could come in. Even if usually you think of feasibility studies, you're thinking about doing a campaign. But that is a campaign of sorts. If you haven't had that before, but you're getting ready to move into that space, it's new territory. So with that, you definitely want to be able to kind of survey your crowd and see what the appetite is for it. You know, and then you got to figure out your own giving level at that point. For A&T, I'm giving expectation as a minimum of $1,000 for a university board, whether it's within one of the colleges or if it's our board of visitors. And some colleges are higher than others, just depending on typical background for those folks. We want to ask your board members and volunteers to make introductions, and not just make introductions, but to partner with you to really go out and see donors. Again, you can't be in 3 places at one time. So this is where a good training opportunity could come in handy to get your core group of volunteers. If you got a fundraising committee, if they're going to go out on their own, you want to make sure they're trained appropriately so that they're going to communicate effectively the message you want conveyed. Had a bad experience with that with the Boy Scouts when I was in Wilmington. Right before I got there, they had this key volunteer who seemed like a great fundraiser, but his whole mission was to go knock on doors and tell people if they don't give, the doors are going to close. And that just never has a good effect. I think it's what some people call kind of shotgun giving. I had a leader one time who, there was a program that was being cut, and the chancellor gave community members an opportunity to raise the funds for it. And it wasn't based on pledges, it had to be cash in hand. So the money was raised, and I remember being in a room with a couple of the leadership, folks in leadership on that committee, that community committee. They were talking to me and one of my supervisors about, see, we could do it. You guys didn't believe it, we could do it. And it kind of got in my supervisor's face a little bit with it and kind of taunting him. And he said, yeah, you guys did an amazing job. He said, I always think it's so wonderful to see what people can do when they have a gun to their head. And I said, oh, that was kind of sharp. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, everybody thought the program was going away. So This program's been in existence and needing support for the last couple decades. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's able to open their pockets and come up with all this money in 6 months. Been needing support for 20 years. So on one side, it's great. The other side, people felt like it was going to go away. So they gave. So really got to be careful with the messaging. I tell folks all the time to really be careful. It's a fine line between communicating an intense need for support versus here is a way to create a tradition of excellence and to elevate what we're doing or to enhance our mission, to enhance what we're already doing versus we really need this. Because what that sounds like is if you don't give us some money today, we're shutting down. And that may be the case, especially with a community nonprofit. It can definitely be difficult. But I would definitely consider having strategy sessions. Again, the volunteer management piece is so key. If it hadn't been for the controversies the Boy Scouts went through, I would say hands down, it's got to be one of the best volunteer organizations. I remember being at a conference one time and they asked to define the Boy Scouts and everybody got it wrong because they kept saying it's the number one youth, it's the number one youth, it's the number one boy, it's the number one kid, it's the number one whatever organization. It said Boy Scouts is the premier volunteer organization that supports youth. It's all about the volunteers. And that's what made it go around. Everything from recruitment to program execution to fundraising. It all centered around the volunteers. You got a good volunteer program and process, you can make anything happen with your organization. Focus on relationships, not transactions. Focus on what needs you will meet, the impact. You always want to make sure to communicate the impact that somebody's gift is going to make. Ask for advice. It's an old saying, many of you may know this. If you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. People love to give their feedback and their insight. Complaints are great. Complaints gives you an opportunity to ask people to help fix it. Invest the time. You got to put the time towards it. If you're not the executive director or CEO, I would encourage you to really talk with your leadership about making sure that you can invest the appropriate time to fundraising. One of the challenges I face with the Boy Scouts is you're not only the fundraiser, you're the program manager, and a lot of times, and you are the recruitment manager. So again, when I look back, when it finally dawned on me how some of my colleagues were being so successful, they had a great volunteer management program. They were really, really, really good at managing volunteers and putting the right volunteer leaders in place to help you do that. So here I've got involve other faculty. This is still around communication. This is involve other volunteers, involve other staff members. It's not all about you or us. Identify top relationships, develop and practice your elevator speeches, cases for support, make them quick, concise. If it takes a 5-minute presentation to explain what your organization does, the makeup is too complicated. You've got to figure out a way to make it short so people understand what you do and understand it quickly. Connect by listening rather than talking. It's really important to know what people are wanting and how they want to support, what their interest is. Sometimes you can't meet their interests based on your organization. It's a lot easier with a university where we've got hundreds of programs they can get involved with or support. Sometimes it's not as easy with a smaller community foundation, but it can be possible. Can't control capacity, only inclination. Somebody may not have the type of money that we want for the organization. We can't control that. We can't make them have more money, but we can definitely control how likely they would be to give to us. Key takeaways. Begin with a vision, document and execute a plan. Want to engage those alums or whoever has benefited or is currently benefiting from the work that you're doing with your organization. Keep in touch with and invite successful alumni to speak to your classes. This could be where you've got someone who's benefited from the program, either through volunteer aspect or a client who comes back and speak with your volunteers. Team up with your staff and ours to formulate donor engagement strategy. This will be where you can, again, get your volunteers to team up with you on how to do this. And depending on how your organization is set up, it could be opportunity for you to get other team members involved with this process. I always say that the whole philanthropy operation in organization, everybody's responsible for making it happen. You got to create an environment conducive for philanthropy to thrive. So that's making sure everybody on the team, everybody in the organization understands how it works. I think it's the heart of any nonprofit, and anybody employed there needs to, if they don't have it, they need to develop the understanding that it's everybody's responsibility. And everybody can play a role in some way, form, or fashion. They don't necessarily have to be in front of donors. And you probably don't want everybody in front of donors. Remember that fundraising is about relationships. It's not transactional. Participate and ask as much as you can. If you are the person responsible for fundraising, you want to make sure you're there and you're part of it. If you don't have good experience with asking, it's no time like the present. There are a lot of resources out there that can help you with closing. And practice with your colleagues, practice with other volunteers who are your loyal donors. Ask them how they like being asked. Ask them what their last experience was like. Do they like being asked at home? I think it's really important to ask now. If someone were to ask you for money, if someone asked you for $1 million today, would you be okay doing it via Zoom? Sounds like a tricky question, but one of the things I've been pushing back with our deans on, they've been trying to plan these different events coming up this year. And I always ask them, is this an event that you could scale back to make digital, make virtual? And a few of them have said, no, things are getting better. I'm like, things are getting better right now. But I think going forward, we always have to plan for COVID-proof activities. You know, is this something we can easily make virtual if we need to? And I think it's so important to do that. So with that, we were really successful by really checking in on our donors, making sure they were all right, asking about the kids, asking about the businesses. And we only had a few who said they didn't want to continue conversations about things we were going to ask them for. But for the most part, people wanted to continue on because we showed interest and we checked on them. This is a big one. Your idea will not always generate donor interest. It's not always about us. We really have to listen to what the donors are interested in. The good thing about community nonprofits, usually if you've got people who are involved and coming to events or supporting here or there, they do have an interest somewhere, but you've got to figure out exactly what it is. Just because you design a particular program that you think they would want to support doesn't mean that's going to be the key. Again, that's really important about asking and really listening to what they're all about. It's just because you make a solicitation for a particular program and they say no, doesn't mean they're saying no to your organization. It may just mean they're saying no to what you're asking for. or what you ask them to support rather. Donors not an ATM, don't nickel and dime. Really be thoughtful about the type of ask you're making, the type of proposal you're putting in front of them. And the donor is not your security blanket. I know we've all been part of organizations. You may be part of one now, or have heard of some that you've got this big donor that everybody knows, and that's that donor that will always say, "You guys are scraping by the end of the year. I'll make up the difference." And it's great to have those, but you can't rely on them. I think it's important to let them know that you really appreciate what they're doing, and to just have a real conversation. You need to identify the person who can have that conversation with them to say, "Hey, think of somebody. Hey, Oprah, we want you to live forever, but we know you're not going to. Can you help us identify people who are as great as you are with supporting? They may not be able to support on the same level, but who are some people you wouldn't mind introducing us to and to us that will be there for us when we need them?" It's important to have those conversations. That pretty much wrapped up that part. I definitely want to give people time to ask questions or just have conversation. Does anybody have any at this time?
I do. Thank you for that. So, what I'm curious about is when you have an organization as big as the one you're in, with as many varied things, when you're working to build the shared vision for what fundraising is going to support, can you talk with us some about how you've done that effectively to get that buy-in, but also the clarity of a vision that's shared with a lot of different moving parts and people?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Elizabeth. It can be challenging with being so large. We've got 13,000 students now, but the one common thing for us that we have going is students. Students are there, they've been there, and they're always going to be there. They're the only reason we are there. So that's one area of support that will never go away. Another part is faculty. I mean, I tell companies this all the time when I ask them to support faculty development, is that in order for us to have great students, we have to have great faculty. And that's the only way that that's going to happen. And the faculty are there because of the students, and the faculty also conduct research, and programmatic support. And these are things that I think you could relate to a lot of your organizations. You want to support whoever your client is, whoever's benefiting. You want to support development for those individuals who are working with those clients or working with whatever programs you have. And you got to have the program piece in place to really make sure that your clients have the best experience possible. Whether they're getting educated, whether they're going through daycare, whether they're receiving food and other resources, the program piece is paramount. So, and facilities, you want to make sure the facilities are adequate. The last thing you want to do is have people coming to pick up food or bring their kids somewhere where the facility is not attractive, doesn't look safe. And that could be anything from making the space bigger and more inhabitable to making sure there's enough lighting outside, making sure that the grounds are set up in a way that it's accessible by any physical needs, all types of things of that nature. But for us to answer that question, Elizabeth, is students, faculty, programs, and facility, because those are our constants. So there are other things that get sprinkled in there, and that's what we learn through donor interest, but those are our basics, and we stick to those. And that's something I think you can kind of articulate with just about any organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
for
have
your
kind-
presentation. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a specific question. Other people could talk to it too. But if you have a donor, because I think like I've been through so many trainings and we're always talking about relationships and really finding the donor, what the donor's mission is and like really matching them to the organization and the program or activity that your organization does that then works that mission. But what if you have this program that everyone loves and you don't need any more funding for that program, So I think my question is ideas around walking the conversation to unrestricted funding. For example, we run Dolly Parton's Imagination Library for Henderson County and everyone loves Dolly and so do we. But
So do I.
yeah, I mean, she's great. Yeah, let's give books to kids. It's wonderful. But we do a lot of other great activities. And so walking people to unrestricted has been a goal and, something I've been able to do successfully in some cases, and it's really around the relationship. But I just wonder what your experience has been like at the university level.
That's a great question, Carrie Ann. So what I would say with that is one of the reasons you give is because you trust what we're doing and you believe in what we're doing. And we do a lot of really, really amazing things. We've really been fortunate in this area more than others. So right now, it's a lot more practical if we can get support for unrestricted support, because we didn't always have this support over here, but now we've got it. Things are great, but we want to make sure our other programs match up and have the same level of support. And your unrestricted support allows those in charge to really make sure that all the programs have equitable support. At the end of the day, if they don't buy it, forget it. I'm supporting Dolly. Cool. It's just more support there. But I think usually when you lay it out that way, if people really believe in what you're doing and the organization, they'll go with that. And it may be where they divide it, where some is going unrestricted and some goes to the program they want to support. You don't want to lean too hard on that because, again, being donor centric, once they've got their mind set on it, it can be a downer if they feel like you're trying to pull them off of it and you're not really listening to them.
I have some feedback on that, Carrie Ann. From my experience, broadening the umbrella so it's under the same interest. But so take, the Dolly Parton program specifically and broaden that umbrella to childhood development or early childhood literacy, or something that's a little broader that has Dolly Parton under it and maybe a couple other programs. So you're still hitting that interest that they're interested in, but you've brought in that bucket, the opportunity for funding. An example of the work that they're supporting under that is Dolly Parton Imagination Library, but it's broadened. So you can also fund some of your other programs that are working towards that same goal. So you're still connecting the donor with the impact that they want to make. But your bucket's not this big, it's now this big for it, and you're pulling that back around. We did that with kind of feeding children year round in one of my past positions, where it wasn't specifically the packs of food in this specific area, but it was the concept. And then we could fold in our summer program and other things like that. And the donors that wanted to help feed kids were still making the impact they wanted to make, but we could broaden it to include a little bit more work.
That's a great point.
I agree too. I have another thing that I'd like to add. I think another way that we've supported folks who are in this dilemma is the question of what does it leverage? Because the Dolly Parton program, and it goes to the concept of the rising tide floats all boats, but a lot of organizations have interrelated component parts, right? And those parts, so the book can be a feeder for something else. And if that something else happens, it's like if the book gets you 5 yards down the field and then you get this other thing that could get you 10 yards down the field. So I think that's sometimes something you can think about is trying to help people understand the component parts and how they fit together and how they work together. And so how they can not only take that investment in the books and Dolly Parton, but what can happen if there are other layers of that that are added on, or other pieces that are brought to the table that give them actually in some ways can make the return on investment for even Dolly Parton, that piece, a lot bigger in and of itself, and why it's very important, and why for that person who served to really realize the maximum benefit, that there are other pieces in that puzzle so that that person has the greatest chance of success and all of the investments have the greatest chance of success.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I had a donor recently who got a little annoyed. He said, you know, I told you I wanted to support scholarships for the university band. So, but you were talking about this unrestricted thing, and it's just, you know, I don't really know what to think of it. I'm really interested in supporting students who have this need and they might have to go home because they don't have enough money, because that's where I was. And I said, oh, absolutely. I said, so, and I explained what unrestricted support can do and how the director has the discretion. I said, and ultimately, if the need at that time is scholarship support, because it's unrestricted, you can still use it for scholarships. And like you said, Kat, about having that umbrella and just showing that, you know, unrestricted means exactly that. It can still support what you're wanting to do if that's the particular need. So like if for some reason the Dolly money is exhausted, that unrestricted support would be able to kick in. Great question. Reminded me about some areas I need to address.
I've got to hop off the call, but I just want to say thank you, Kevin. You guys, please continue talking.
Thank you, Ben.
Really appreciate you being here today.
I'll ask one more really specific question if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So this year, my organization, so I'm a new fundraiser. Well, I'm technically in my third year now. So I'm a seasoned 3-year fundraiser. Gonna sit for my CFRE this year. But
Ooh.
this year, my organization sent out giving reports for the first time ever. And my mentor later kind of chided me for not including a envelope, like a giving envelope in the giving report. But in my mind, it was like, oh, this is a tax document. Thank you so much. But here's your giving report. And my mentor was like, every touch is an opportunity, Carrie Ann. You know, so I don't know. I just wondered from your own organizations, when you do those reports for, like, do you do an appeal envelope or have ways to give listed? Or I felt like they've already given.
Yeah. Hi, this is Lee, up in Northeast Tennessee. I too, I've been in nonprofit for almost 40 years, variety of nonprofit fields. This is my first experience with food banking, and also my first experience with doing what we call bounce back envelopes. So we do put envelopes in there. And I was coming from always, oh no, when you thank, you just need to thank, you shouldn't do anything else. Asks are, you know, for certain times, and just simple thank yous are all about the thank yous. And I was having a discussion with our executive director about that, and she told me how they came to do that. She attended a national conference and heard about how powerful these return envelopes for an additional gift can make, and, you know, showed the study of the, you know, the return on that particular investment of that envelope. And so they started doing it, and it's been an amazing additional source of revenue. People do use those envelopes. I can't think, I've been with the organization a little over 2 years. I can't think of a time when I've heard from a donor being offended by that. And we even do include them in the end of year charitable statements. And we do get returns on that. And we have seen that particular revenue pot increase significantly. I do think it also makes a difference when you have a truly sincere thank you letter that envelope is accompanying. And we work very hard to change those letters every single month. and to personalize them as much as possible. So that's our experience. But I did come from that, like, no, don't do that. But I've been convinced here at the food bank that at least with the food bank, it does work and work well.
Lee, did you have a pledge card in there as well, or is that like an?
No, we just do the envelope. I will say though, I'll share just real quick. I'm real excited. We're adding an additional position, and that's a donor relations senior manager. I've really seen a need for that for a while, and we're going to be adding that. I'm actually going to transition to that position. And I'll just full disclosure there. I don't know about all of y'all. Looks like many of you are working remotely. Some of you at the office. Our team's been working remotely for over 2 years now. And, for the most part, doing really well. Some members are going back, but my husband and I actually moved to South Georgia. And when I went to resign, my executive director said, no, things are going well. Please don't resign right now. Just keep doing what you're doing. Someday that will change. But we did agree when the time came, we need a director on site. So we're going to find a new development director, and I'm going to transition to donor relations, which I'm excited about. Don't know if that answered your question, but it made me think of that other thing too.
That's great. Congratulations. I too have to do a 12:30, but I appreciate the call today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoyed the conversation. Have a wonderful day.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.